Thank you so much for coming. You are the expert behind these numbers. I was just telling in Turkish. Yeah, today this is a very big report that came out.
Yes.
Are you, first of all, are you happy with the numbers? And were you expecting these numbers to come out as they came out?
Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to be here. It's always a pleasure to visit. I think the numbers are very good, and it did surprise us. I think if you looked at the consensus of estimates, it was more like 150 to 185, somewhere in there. So these were right in terms of the consensus at 157 in terms of private payroll jobs added. But I think that the really good piece of news is the upward revisions from November and December of last year. And when you add those in, one was at 196 and I think
Yes.
247, I think, in December. But if you look at the last 3 months in terms of an average, you're getting very close to 200,000 jobs added per month. And that is the number that most economists, and I'm not an economist, nor do I play one on TV, but the economists would tell you that we need around 200,000 jobs just to continue the momentum. So if this is sustainable, then that's a very good thing.
Is it going to be sustainable? Are we going to keep seeing these numbers as getting closer to 200,000?
Well, when I listened to the economists at the conference board talk, I think the projection has been that we would have sort of a slow growth scenario in the United States for the first half of 2013, but that things would pick up. Now, if we see more of these numbers or this kind of trend continues, I think we could really begin to look at like a more of a pickup earlier in 2013 than we had anticipated. You know, I think part of it is there are lots of different green growth things popping around. You can see a little bit of movement in the housing market. You can see some of the manufacturing segments begin to look a little bit better. Consumer confidence, you know, we have to be a little concerned about that. That's not terribly high right at the moment. We just took a little dip. But I think part of that is a reflection of people are looking at the new tax rates.
That's right.
And every American for every year, when you take a look at that first paycheck in January where the Social Security has kicked back in for a few months, that's always a little jarring. You know, so I think these are the kinds of numbers, these job numbers today, that will help people begin to think that we are indeed turning a corner. And so my hope is that they will continue to be optimistic, that they may indeed spend as opposed to be concerned. And I think also these numbers begin to tell CEOs that perhaps it's time to add to payrolls as business, you know, situations warrant.
And Rebecca, let's go to the 7.9% unemployment. The consensus was, the forecasts were around 7.7%. I know it comes from another survey, but did that surprise you, that increase? Is it a negative?
Well, we were at 7.8, so it's essentially unchanged. I'm not sure that it's necessarily
Too big of a change?
Too big of a thing. But I think part of this is the labor participation rate. You know, you have...
It's a labor participation rate.
That's right. So there are a lot of factors there. So I'm not terribly concerned that that's ticked up a tiny bit.
And you were talking about the CEOs, right?
Yes.
The CEO Challenge.
Yes.
Can you tell us about the CEO Challenge?
Yes, I'd be happy to. Since 1999, we've done an annual survey of CEOs around the world, and we ask them to rank order their challenges in priority order for the next 12 months. And around the world, and our CEOs weighed in, they had choices like geopolitical risk and operational excellence and innovation and human capital and trust in business and customer relationships. Well, the #1 choice around the world was human capital.
Human capital,
Yes.
which is proving today's point, right?
I think so. I think for a variety of reasons, CEOs have human capital challenges as the top of their mind. Now, it's a little different in some regions where it might not be one. For example, in the United States, it's #5. But in Europe, it's #1. It was a dramatic increase since last year, where it was #7. In Asia, it's #1. And so I think a lot of these CEOs recognize that they've extracted many of the savings that they can. They've expanded about as much as they can. In this slowing growth or slow growth economies, depending on where you are in the world, there may not be as much of an incentive to try to expand your global footprint, for example. It's also very clear that around the world there's a talent shortage. There are many, many companies that will indicate that it takes longer to find someone, or that they settle for 5 out of the 7 must-have characteristics, but they can't find exactly the person that they want. And I know, you know, you look at this, you go, well, there's such high unemployment rates. You look at the 75 million people around the world, ages 15 to 24, who are unemployed. or youth
Ages
unemployment,
15 to
24.
15 to 24,
We have
75
million
that's
people
right.
around the world, that's right. And when you look at the young people in Spain approaching a 50% or higher unemployment rate, and you look at what we have in the United States, which is difficult to come down, Europe, thinking about a lost generation, it's counterintuitive to say, well, why can't we just find the workers that we need? But a lot of it is skill mismatch, and a lot of it is geography mismatch as well. So you have a lot of CEOs who realize that they can't simply pick up the phone and bring in the talent that they need. So they have to find the employees that they have now. They have to get them to be even more capable, to be more engaged, to get more productivity out of them. And in fact, when you look on a global basis, most of the strategies around human capital are inwardly focused, like growing talent internally or developing our employees, raising engagement, trying to retain good employees. Those are the things that are a change from last year because it's now much more inwardly focused on the employee base as opposed to leaders. And even when you look at another one of the top challenges in every region, operational excellence, their #1 strategy is to raise employee engagement and productivity.
And are these CEOs mostly US CEOs or global CEOs?
Oh, they're global.
You interviewed them
Absolutely.
or the conference board interviewed? Is this the report that conference board came up with?
Yes, this report is an enterprise-wide approach. I partner with 2 other co-authors, Bart Van Arik, who is our executive vice president and
So
chief
you leaded
economist.
this.
Yes, we did, but it's a survey, and then we follow it up with interviews. So more than 725 or so responded this year, and then we do selected interviews with some CEOs from different parts of the
What's
world.
the pool? How many did participate in this?
About 729, actually.
That's very important.
Yes.
And Rebecca, can we talk about also the GDP that came minus 0.1? Does that worry you?
Well, it's a little surprising. Of course, I'm not an economist, but when I hear them talking about some of these things, you know, I think it's one more indicator that we may be in for a rather slow period. Now, you know, things can change, and a lot of the markets are driven by how people feel. A lot of the faith and optimism, we look for signs, and so if we see a few more things like these job numbers today, at least in the United States, I think that will do a lot toward helping people maybe make that business decision to bring people on board, thinking that better days are right around the corner if they start to see more of these small indications of positive things.
You keep saying that you're not an economist, but you're an economist on TV. You are a regular face also in the US TV, aren't you? Bloomberg
Yes,
US.
yes.
They call you for the interviews, and you talk about these numbers. Especially the hiring keeps outpacing the economy. Your
Yes.
report is very important. They use it, they utilize it.
Yes.
I want to go back to that. How does conference board come up with these numbers? I just also want to talk about the methodology, the infrastructure about it. Can you tell us, and your role, also your title that
Sure.
we didn't mention?
Sure. Well, I serve as the leader of the human capital practice,
So you're the leader of the.
human capital piece.
This
And-
is a very interesting and new department, isn't it?
Well, the conference board has had for many years an enterprise-wide approach. We're almost 100 years old, as you know, and we started as an economic powerhouse. And
It is the economic powerhouse,
yes.
indeed.
That's right. And so I partner with those folks, and in fact, there's a lot of overlap with labor markets and in the economic space and also in the human capital space. In fact, your viewers may want to read something that just hit the Wall Street Journal today on the impact of United States workers who are going to choose to delay retirement.
Can we say it slowly for our audience?
Yes, of
because
course.
Wall Street Journal had an article today. I was
Today.
reading it today too.
Oh, yes?
Yes. Can we repeat it again?
Yes, of course. It's in the Wall Street Journal, and I'm sorry the title has escaped me, but I know that the author was Gad Lebanon,
Yes.
and he is our Director of Macroeconomics Research at the Conference
At the
Board
conference
in the
board.
Economics
Conference board affects Wall Street Journal, economy even, and also the trend. Yes.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So one of the things his research has shown is that there's been a large increase, I think it's 62%, of American workers age 45 to 64, I believe. I hope I have that last part right. They're choosing to delay retirement, in other words, to stay in the workforce for longer periods of time. I think there's a couple of reasons why they're choosing to do that. One is many people have had an impact to their 401k in these last few years, and so the opportunity to retire even a few years earlier before Social Security comes together is something that may no longer be a possibility.
Okay.
Second thing is we live longer, and we're generally speaking healthier, and so many people are not leaving the workforce simply because of health reasons.
Yes.
And then another reason I think is that many people find fulfillment through their work, and so they want to continue to do that. The downside, I think, is that as long as you have workers who stay longer, there are some people who would tell you that that sometimes reduces the number of opportunities for generations coming up in the workplace. I'm not sure I buy that argument quite as much. I think it's important to make sure that you use your more seasoned and experienced workers in different ways. Maybe they no longer have quite the same role, but now they're in a mentoring role, they're working on strategic projects, and it could provide a lot of opportunities for workers coming through the pipeline to benefit from their wisdom and experience. You know, if we complain on the one hand that we can't find workers, we can't find the skills,
Yes, yes.
then let's make sure we don't push folks out too fast so that that has an impact on the company.
Thank you, Rebecca. My producer says our time is up.
Oh,
I want to
that went
conclude.
so
I need to
fast.
conclude here, but I need to tell you, today is a very important day. You're wearing red, and there's a reason for it. Let's share it for our audience.
Yes, it's Go Red for Women today here in America, and it's to try to raise awareness about this very important health issue for women. And I hope that all of us, for those of us who have people in our lives, if you're not a woman but you have people that you care about, I help them understand what important work
Yes.
this is.